Have a wonderful time and sleep well.
Welcome to Doran Bedtime, where sweet dreams begin. Hello, my little friend. It is so good to see you here again. Take a moment to find your most comfortable position. Let your head sink into the pillow. Feel the softness of your blanket. Everything is quiet. Everything is still. Now close your eyes and imagine a beautiful kingdom far away. A magical story is about to begin. Once upon a time, in a land filled with rolling green hills and tall white towers, there lived a kind girl named Cinderella. Cinderella had a heart of gold. She was gentle and sweet to everyone she met. She lived in a large old house with her stepmother and 2 stepsisters. They were not as kind as Cinderella. They made her work very hard from morning until night. Cinderella cleaned the large stone floors. She washed the heavy wooden tables. She sat by the fireplace to stay warm, and sometimes the cinders from the fire got on her dress. That is why they called her Cinderella, but even when she was tired, Cinderella remained calm and patient. She looked out the window and dreamed of a better life. She listened to the birds singing on her windowsill. The birds were her friends. The tiny mice in the attic were her friends too. She felt safe and peaceful when she was with them. One sunny afternoon, a letter arrived at the house. It was an invitation to a royal ball at the king's palace. The king wanted everyone to come so the prince could find a friend. The stepsisters were very excited. They talked about their silk dresses all day long. Cinderella wanted to go too. She found an old dress that belonged to her mother. It was soft and blue. She wanted to fix it with ribbons and lace, but her stepsisters made her work even harder, so she had no time. When the night of the ball arrived, the stepmother and stepsisters left for the palace. Cinderella was left all alone in the quiet house. She sat by the fire and felt a little sad. But then something magical happened. The air began to sparkle. Small lights twinkled like tiny stars in the kitchen. Soft music filled the room. A kind woman with a silver wand appeared. It was her fairy godmother. "Do not cry, my dear," the fairy godmother said. "You shall go to the ball." The fairy godmother asked Cinderella to bring a large pumpkin from the garden. With a wave of her wand, the pumpkin turned into a golden carriage. Then she waved her wand at the 6 mice. They turned into 6 beautiful gray horses. A rat became a coachman, and 2 lizards became footmen. Finally, the fairy godmother touched Cinderella's old dress. Suddenly, it turned into the most beautiful gown ever seen. It was made of silver and silk, and it sparkled like the moon on water. On her feet were tiny, shimmering glass slippers. They fit perfectly, but remember, the fairy godmother whispered, the magic ends at midnight. When the clock strikes 12, everything will turn back to the way it was. Cinderella promised to remember. She stepped into the golden carriage and drove away toward the palace. The palace was glowing with thousands of candles. When Cinderella entered the ballroom, everyone stopped talking. She looked like a princess from a dream. The prince saw her and walked toward her. He asked her to dance. They danced slowly and gracefully. The music was soft, the room was warm. Cinderella felt like she was floating on a cloud. She forgot about the time. She forgot about the cinders and the hard work. She was happy, but suddenly she heard the first bell of the clock. It was midnight. She remembered the warning. She had to leave immediately. She ran out of the ballroom and down the long stone stairs. As she ran, one of her glass slippers fell off, but she did not stop. She jumped into her carriage just as the clock struck 12 for the last time. The carriage turned back into a pumpkin. The horses became mice again, and Cinderella was wearing her old dress once more. All she had left was one glass slipper. The prince wanted to find the mysterious girl. He took the glass slipper and went to every house in the kingdom. He wanted to find the person whose foot fit the slipper perfectly. Finally, he arrived at Cinderella's house. The two stepsisters tried to put on the slipper, but their feet were too big. Then Cinderella asked if she could try. The stepmother laughed, but the prince said yes. Cinderella sat down and placed her foot into the slipper. It fit perfectly. The prince knew she was the girl from the ball. He took her to the palace, and they became the best of friends. Cinderella was never lonely or tired again. She lived in a beautiful room with soft pillows and warm blankets. She was happy, safe, and loved. Now the story is ending. The palace lights are dimming. The kingdom is going to sleep. Cinderella is sleeping in her cozy bed. The prince is sleeping. The birds and the mice are sleeping. And you are ready to sleep too. Your body feels light. Your mind is calm. The moon is watching over you. Next story is Snow White. Close your eyes now. Let's travel to a snowy kingdom far, far away. Once upon a time, in the middle of winter, a queen sat by a window. The window frame was made of black wood. She looked out at the falling snow. Soft, white snowflakes were dancing in the air. Soon, a beautiful baby girl was born. Her skin was as white as snow. Her lips were as red as a rose. Her hair was as black as the wood of the window. Her name was Snow White. Snow White grew up to be kind and gentle. She loved the birds in the sky and the flowers in the field. But a new queen was very proud. She had a magic mirror on the wall. Every morning she asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always answered, "You, my queen, are the fairest in the land." But one day, the mirror said something different. Snow White is the fairest of them all. The queen was very angry. Snow White had to run deep into the forest to stay safe. The forest was tall and quiet. The leaves whispered to her, "Rustle, rustle." The sun began to set and the shadows grew long. Snow White walked and walked until she saw a tiny house. Everything inside was very small. There were 7 little chairs and 7 little beds. She was so tired. She lay down on the beds and fell into a deep sleep. Soon the owners of the house came back. They were the 7 dwarfs who worked in the mountains. They saw Snow White sleeping peacefully. "How beautiful she is," they whispered. "Shh, shh." They let her rest and watched over her. Snow White stayed with the 7 dwarfs. Every morning the dwarfs went to work. They walked slowly through the forest, step by step, plod, plod, plod. Snow White stayed home and sang with the birds, but the queen found out where she was. She disguised herself as an old woman and went to the forest. She gave Snow White a bright red apple. One bite of the apple made Snow White fall into a very deep sleep. It was a magic sleep, as deep as the ocean. The 7 dwarfs were very sad. They placed her in a glass bed in a quiet clearing. The forest was silent. The animals came to watch over her. The moon and the stars shone on her face every night. Then a kind prince came to the forest. He saw Snow White and felt her peace. He touched her hand gently. Snow White opened her eyes as if waking from a long dream. The spell was broken. Everyone was happy and the forest felt warm again. Now Snow White is back in her castle. The fire is crackling in the fireplace. Crackle, pop. The 7 dwarfs are sleeping in their cozy beds. The prince and Snow White are also resting. The whole kingdom is covered in soft white moonlight. And now it is your turn to sleep. Your legs are heavy and relaxed. Your arms are resting by your side. Your breathing is slow and steady, in and out. Imagine the soft snow falling outside. Each snowflake brings a peaceful dream to you. You are safe. You are loved. Drift away into a deep magic sleep. Drift away to the dreamland. Good night. Sleep tight. I love you.